Hi, I'm Greg Lang from Michigan State University. We're here at the Michigan State University Clarksville Research Center. We're specifically standing in the middle of an NC-140 Cherry training systems trial. This is a trial that has been duplicated across North America in sites ranging from Chihuahua, Mexico to British Columbia and even Nova Scotia. It's a very interesting trial where we have three different dwarfing precocious rootstocks: Gisela 3, Gisela 5, and Gisela 6. And we have four different training systems that we've imposed on these trees with these different rootstocks. We have the tall spindle axe system, which is a central leader system. We have a super slender axe system, which is planted very closely together, a single leader system. We have a KGB or Kim Green bush, variation of the Spanish bush system. That's a multiple leader bush type architecture of the tree. And we have a UFO or upright fruiting offshoots training system, which has multiple leaders but in a very flat plane. We're going to take a look at each of those systems individually, and myself and Lynn Long will talk about effective pruning on these systems. The trees we're going to be looking at are going into their third growing season, so we've been training them for 2 years. They're beginning to fruit and flower, and the majority of the training has been accomplished. Now we're moving into developing the individual fruiting units for each system. We're looking at the upright fruiting offshoots training system here on Gisela 6 rootstock. The UFO, or upright fruiting offshoots, is a system designed to diffuse strong vigor in a tree. Each of these uprights is diffusing the vigor of the cherry that would like to grow into a strong leader. And so when you have a vigorous rootstock, even a precocious vigorous rootstock like Gisela 6 or Gisela 12, when you place it into a multiple leader training system like the UFO or the KGB, you get a very nice marriage of rootstock vigor to training system. Had we used a Gisela 3 or a Gisela 5 dwarfing rootstock with this training system, we would have to put the trees much closer together and use fewer uprights per rootstock, because the lower vigor is not going to support a full wall of fruit like a more vigorous rootstock. This tree is a Benton on Gisela 6 in the UFO training system. We're moving into the third growing season. So the first season, the tree was planted at an angle. We removed all of the buds along the bottom of the tree, the buds along the sides, leaving only top buds to grow. That gave us our uprights. And because this is part of a trial with several other training system experiments around the country, we had to restart the tree at the beginning of the second year. In doing so, the original upright that grew, we cut back, and you can see sometimes we got two new uprights coming where we had a single upright before. So in the second year, we restarted the system. We completely filled in the fruiting wall with uprights. And so now going into the third year, we're simply thinning these uprights out, taking out any that are very, very strong, such as this very strong bull shoot, taking out any that are weaker, perhaps this one here, and then stepping back and looking at the spacing so that we have very nice orientation of our uprights. That will intercept maximum amount of light and give us very high fruiting sites for next year. What I'm going to start with here then is to remove any side branches that I don't need, that are not going to be brought up into the trellis system. So we'll probably keep this one here. I'll probably eliminate this one here. It seems to be weaker. We'll tie this up later. I probably don't need this one down here. So we filled our space down at this end. Looking up, we're spaced very nicely. Here we've got two. This one's coming out into the row. So eliminate that. I've got a selectic branch here. Eliminate that. And we're pretty much nicely spaced. We don't need this one coming from the next tree because I've already filled my space here. So we'll take that off. And the last thing that we do is we just top each branch. Generally what I like to do is I like to cut it to a bud that's in the row, not one that's facing out into the alleyway. So I'll cut that there, here, these branches just so. And the reason that I do this tipping is we know that being on a precocious rootstock like Gisela, all of these individual nodes now this season are going to create a spur of leaves with no fruit. But next year, each of these will be a fruiting spur. And as growth slows down in the year that this shoot developed, the nodes get closer together, so the spurs get closer together. And then 2 years after that branch formed, you'll have very dense clusters of fruit. So by tipping these branches back, eliminating those dense clusters of fruit, we keep the fruiting wall much more in balance, and the fruiting spurs will be spaced out much more regularly up and down the branch. And with that, we've pretty much finished this UFO tree. So here we can see we have a real strong shoot. We'd actually cut it last year and had 3 new shoots regenerate. One still is very, very strong. And we only need one in this location, and we don't want it to be too strong. Otherwise, it'll become a new shoot rather than simply a fruiting upright. So we're going to take this one off, and we can thin this one out, and then we'll tie this one back. And this will be exactly what we want to fill in the wall in balance with the rest of the fruiting uprights. Okay, here we're looking at some UFO trees going into the 3rd year. These are Rainiers on Gisela 3. So it's a dwarfing rootstock, very precocious. You can see much shorter growth compared to the Bentons in the other video. And we can also see that here we did not restart these trees. The shoots that grew in the 1st year are now flowering going into the 3rd year with flowering spurs. So you can see when I talk about fruiting units, what you grow in the 1st year or the 2nd year and how that becomes a spur fruiting site in the 3rd or 4th year is illustrated very nicely. This was last year's growth. This was the growth from 2 years ago. And this gives you a very nice demonstration of what we will expect to see in the 3rd year. Then in the 4th year, this will be flowering spurs along with here. So this area that you see right here will all be flowering spurs going into the 4th year. And we'll have new shoot growth that will keep extending these fruiting units as this training system develops.